Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Live Ultralight podcast powered by Outdoor Vitals. And right now at Outdoor Vitals, we have our Founders Day sale going on. This is our anniversary sale, which is basically Black Friday matched discounts. So if you guys want to take advantage of some discounts, now is the time. I'm going to call back to the fact that this is kind of our anniversary. Really, last year we ran our anniversary sale in August, but that was our 10-year anniversary. It's the first time we ever did an anniversary sale. You guys loved it. We had great feedback on it. So we're going to run it back this year. But the reality is our anniversary of the business is more like May, June. Technically, the company was started in May, but we got our very first sale in June of 2014. That is 11 years ago now. Absolutely mind-boggling to think about that. But before I get into some of the details on that, just wanted to say welcome back to this podcast. Today, I'm going to be talking about a few things. I like to use these as a day of reflection and like to think back on life. Anytime you hit some of those milestones, let's say it's just the new year, you like to look back at the last year of your life and you like to look forward at what's to come. And so I like to use this specific episode to do that, as well as talk about just some of the things that I feel like I've learned and have been recently on my mind about how Outdoor Vitals got here, how I got here, and how everything just came to be. So that's what we're going to do today. So I'm going to first talk about Founders Day sales stuff. Then we're going to talk a little bit about some things to come, which I know you guys want to hear. And then I'm going to talk about how you guys can get, I don't know, more. I guess one way to say it is like more out of your life, or ways to accomplish big, scary goals. And I'll elaborate on that. So, Founders Day sale. You're going to save 10% on everything site-wide if you're a Live Ultralight member, which I advise all of you to do so. To go join that, you're going to get a bonus typically when you sign up. And you're going to save 15% off on this sale. And just for those of you that don't know, $10 a month is all that it costs, but it's not really a cost. It's more like you're putting $10 into a savings account because it just goes into store credit every month, and that is yours to spend whenever you choose. So go check that out. Remember, we also have a bunch of member exclusive discounts on our other favorite things. Specifically, the one you guys use the most is food. We sell so much food at discounts, and we give rebates back. So not only are you going to save 15% off on food, you're going to get rebates back, but there's lots of options, water filters, everything. So go check that out. And I didn't even get to this because this is a slightly newer tier. We probably don't talk about it nearly enough because we've only had it for like less than a year, but people are jumping to this tier like crazy. That is our peak membership tier. On this sale, you will get 18% off. So huge savings. And then you get everything else from the regular membership. And the only difference there is instead of being $10 a month, it's $25 a month, but it's still the same thing. You get $25 into your store account every single month. It's yours to spend, yours to keep. Okay, other things on the sale. We designed a brand new shirt, a limited run shirt. You will be able to get that on all orders over $100. So go check that out. I believe it's also a new colorway, so it's a cool new shirt to go check out. So free shirt over $100, and we're running a giveaway. If you are on our email list, you're already into the giveaway for a brand new top quilt. If you spend money during the sale, you'll get an additional entry for every dollar spent. So shopping during the sale, which I believe goes Monday to Monday, is going to get you a bunch more entries into the giveaway of a new top quilt. So just one more little added thing for our Founders Day sale. Again, this is the same discounts we do as this is the same discounts, or we're matching the same discounts, as we do for Black Friday. So go check out the sale. So I wanted to call that attention up first. Now, what's to come? You guys love to hear about what's to come. And if you haven't noticed by now, I'm doing this one solo. Brigham was actually in Vietnam. And because it's kind of a reflection podcast, I don't know, I just felt like doing this one solo. Everyone's very busy this week getting ready for the sale, because obviously I'm recording this just a couple days before this sale goes live. So solo, you just get me. And so you might have to be patient with me as I go through some of the stuff that I'm hoping is valuable for you guys today. And I'll explain why I think it's going to be valuable. But first, let's talk about what's to come. This last year has been a great year for us. After COVID, we had some slowdowns. There was millions and millions and millions of dollars of excess inventory across the outdoor industry that people have been liquidating for years now. And I think we're finally getting to the tail end of that, mixed with our own internal things that we're trying to work on and work through. And so it's been awesome to see how the last year of the company has gone. We've been back on a good growth trajectory. We've been bringing in new customers. It's been very, very fun to see. But what you guys really care about is products that are coming. We should have a better cadence of some new products coming out more consistently. However, we have a big drop in Q3, which is July, August, September of this year. Actually, it'll really be August, September of this year. We have some new products coming. In fact, we have 4 new products coming, and I will say only one of them is like a 2.0 version of a crowd favorite bestseller from us. And that's going to be a backpack. So be on the lookout for that. And then the other 3 are going to be new pieces of apparel that we're really stoked about. We've been testing these very, very heavily, dialing in everything from fit to fabrics. We've been pioneering some different ways to use some fabrics. We've been innovating and creating new fabrics for some of these, but overall we've got, so we'll have a backpack that'll come around August. And then we've got 3 pieces of apparel that should be here in September. And those pieces are going to range from, I'll just kind of tease it out, some pants, a really cool hybrid top, and a newer, innovative, kind of new material, but warmer, puffy. So be on the lookout for those. Really excited for that, and excited for just other stuff that we're going to be have coming through the pipeline over the next 12 months. So with this, like I say, I like to take time to reflect on things. And one of the things that I've been reflecting on lately is, I guess I don't stop and think about my life as being unique or different than anyone else's. It's just the same, right? It's normal to me. But on a recent trip, I had one of our employees, he was just asking me like about starting the business, about starting a business at 23 years old. And I also invested in real estate. I bought a duplex when I was 23 years old, and just some of these other things that I did at a young age. And because I think he's approaching some of those ages, and he was just curious about like how I got into those things. And I guess the interesting thing to me is it just took me off guard a little bit, because none of those seemed scary to me or risky or crazy. They were just the next step. And so I think to relate this a little bit more to backpacking, I think people see some of the stuff that I also do, or we do as a team, really. Brigham does some outrageous stuff. Our entire team goes and does 100-mile hikes. But last year I went and hiked 100 miles in the Wind Rivers, just solo, and there's grizzlies out there, right? And some people would just hear some of those things and think that's absolutely crazy. Or last year I ran a 100-mile ultra marathon as a 200-pound guy, right? I'm not some like ultra runner like you. I'm not who you would think would be an ultra runner, right? Or, doing rim to rim to rim. Some of these things seem very big and very scary. And as I've looked through the 100-mile challenge Facebook group, there are people that specifically say, like, I joined the challenge to build my confidence to solo backpack. Or I joined this challenge to build my confidence to do bigger trips. And I think that's such an interesting thing to think about, both in terms of backpacking and in terms of life in general, right? And after this employee asked me that question, I kind of gave him like a superficial answer of like, I don't know, I just did it. And we talked through some things, but then I like went to bed that night and I thought about it a little bit more. And I got up the next morning, I'm like, okay, I want to explain something to him that I feel like I learned kind of earlier in life. But with on this note, I guess, some of the big scary things, like as I was just writing down some notes this morning about this topic, some of the things that I guess I've done that other people might find interesting, scary, unique, but But again, to me, it was just life, I guess. I was, like I said, started a business really young, things like, I get asked if it's scary to sleep alone in the woods. I get asked, or comments or whatnot, if like it was scary to hike 100 miles in grizzly country or to be solo for that. If it's scary to travel to Asia alone, in the early days of the business, I was traveling to Asia by myself, visiting factories, visiting people I've never met before. Just, it's not like I had like a liaison taking me to teach me how to do some of this stuff or to build relationships. It's just scary to run my first ultramarathon or to run 100-mile ultramarathon. Or is it scary? Like when I was 18, I went and sold alarms 2,000 miles from home, graduated high school, got on a plane, flew 2,000 miles and started knocking on doors in not the best neighborhoods to sell alarms because I wanted to learn how to sell and I needed money. I wanted to go to college, right? Bought a duplex when I was 23 years old. Had to borrow money for that. Had to borrow money to grow the business. There's all these risks. Quit my job, obviously, to start a business. There were all these risks that are out there, right? And the funny thing is when people would ask me or have asked me over the last 11 years, let's say, about those, rarely did I say, oh yeah, it was terrifying. I was so scared to do that. I wish it wasn't ever this thought process. It was just like, I just did the next thing. And so when people ask me that, sometimes it catches me off guard. I mean, I would get asked that all the time when I was starting Outdoor Vital. It's like, man, you're starting a business. That's so risky. That's so scary. I've always wanted to do that, but I just never wanted to take the risk. And that question always shocked me because to me, there wasn't risk. There was so little risk. And it was just, it really would stop me and make me kind of ask questions of, well, why do I feel this way versus how everyone else feels? And I came up with two reasons why I think it's allowed me to face uncomfortable situations and just move through them. And, spoiler alert, they're not going to be the easiest thing. Like, it's not like a quick light bulb switch. It's not like a brain tease hack. It's not like you just convince yourself it's not scary or hypnosis or anything like that. They're going to require some work, but I've seen patterns in my life of how these things work. And so whatever your goal is, and we'll talk about goals in a minute, whether it's to backpack 100 miles or to go solo backpacking or to hike, to go do a PCT through hike or some crazy big hike, or maybe it's to bike across the country, or maybe it's to kayak across a lake, or maybe it could be anything, right? Maybe it's to start a business. Maybe it's to reach financial freedom and success in that way. Whatever it is, I've found that these two things, these patterns, have allowed me to just move forward without so many limits, and to just continue to try to progress and not be, as burdened down by the overwhelm or the fear. So the very first thing that I wanted to talk about was I always studied the next step. Okay. So when you think about starting a business or when you think about going on a backpacking trip, where most people end up, right? Where they stop, sorry, I just noticed I wasn't double recording here, but most people get to a point where they just get overwhelmed, right? So let's say it's backpacking. They think about all of the things that they need to do, all the gear they need to have, all of the planning they need to do. And then they think about, even tighter levels than that. Well, I'm not that great at finding a campsite. I don't know how to do water. I don't know how to pack my food. I don't know what clothes I'm going to need. And pretty soon they have completely talked themselves out of moving forward. They have stagnated. They've become overwhelmed, and it's easier to just stop and do nothing, essentially, and push that goal farther down the road. Well, maybe I'll backpack next year. Maybe next year. Same thing with starting a business. Like, people are going to sit there and think of all of the reasons why they can't start a business, because they don't know how to file their taxes, or they don't know how to get a business license, or they don't know how to, sell something online, or they don't know how to get new customers, or they don't know how to. There's all of these reasons why we don't do things, and it's all usually because of unknowns. Unknowns cause fear. Fear causes stagnation. And so what I learned was that one of the things that I was doing in my own life is I was just studying the next step, whatever the next most important thing is. So when I wanted to, get more and more into backpacking, I would just start studying backpacking, specifically the areas that I didn't know much about at the time. When I wanted to get into ultra running, I asked a friend who was an ultra runner to recommend some resources. And so they recommended a book, and I listened to the book, and I learned a ton. And so then as I started to prepare for my first ultra marathon, I had a plan. I mean, I had goals, I had plans, I had scenarios, because I had studied the next step. It wasn't like I needed to learn how to be on the podium. I needed to learn how to finish, and I needed to learn what was the most important things to know how to do that. And so I just studied that next step. As I worked my way up to doing these 100-mile backpacking trips, you know how many years I backpacked where I was hiking 10 miles a day and then up to maybe 15 to 18. And, it was a massive process, but I continually refined and learned and continued to do that. When it came to the business itself, that was like the biggest one, right? Where I only needed to learn the next most important thing. I didn't need to become so burdened down by everything right then and there to not get anything done, which is kind of where the next part of this particular thing, studying the next step, is, which is prioritize and execute. Now, I don't know if this actually comes from the military. I'm not sure, but I think it does. But prioritizing and executing that next step is a massive skill set in my mind. If you can learn to break problems down and prioritize them and execute on them, you're going to get so much farther. So let's just say I was tasked with building a house. Now, some people would study building a house from start to finish, and they'd just study and they'd study and they'd study. And they'd want to know every part about building a house before they ever, started to build anything. Whereas what I've learned in life is, yes, I want to begin with the end in mind. I want to know the end result that I'm going for. But the way that I've been able to get things done and move forward is I just really need to know the absolute most about how to prepare the land and build the foundation, right? So then you build that foundation, and then you learn, okay, what do I need to do to frame this thing? And you go through each step, and you just study that next step. You don't need to know everything on day one. For so many things in life. And that concept of prioritizing and executing is absolutely huge. When you go through our 100-mile challenge, that's what we try to do for you. We try to tell you what is the most important thing to be prioritizing today, execute that this week. The next week, here's the next most important thing, execute that week. And we just break down what it takes to do a big effort like a 100-mile hike into bite-sized pieces, and people succeed when they do that. It's just rare that people slow down enough to do the prioritizing and the executing and do the studying to eliminate those fears. That's huge. So when that employee of mine asked me about, I think at the time he was talking a little bit more about the real estate side. I was just like, I don't know. I didn't have any fear, and I even had to borrow money to put a down payment on to loan from, I had nothing, right? I was starting a business. I just graduated college. I had no money. So I had to convince someone else to give me money, to then take that money and give it to the bank so they'll give me more money, right? And I had zero fear with that. Why? Because I had studied enough real estate. I'd watched enough real estate. I'd been around people who had also invested in real estate. And then I'd run the numbers well enough to know, there's no way I'm not making money in this scenario and being able to fulfill my obligations for these loans. Same with when I started to borrow money for the business and so many other things. And I realized they weren't risky to me. They weren't scary to me because I had built this knowledge base. So part two of why I think have been able to move forward with some of this stuff, in whether it's abnormal or not, I don't know, in the way that I have, is that there's this concept of wins feed wins, success breeds success, confidence fuels confidence. And doing something uncomfortable pushes you to learn that you can do uncomfortable things. So I was lucky enough that at a young age in life, I was able to get some wins. And wins, I just mean some successes. And I think that gave me this taste of what it's like to succeed. And trust me, I did not succeed at everything. I tried out for the basketball team multiple times, and never made the basketball team. There was lots of things I wasn't successful at in life, but I had some that allowed me to see what success was like. And if you've ever been someone who feels like you have no wins, then I would challenge you in two ways. One, first, pull out a sheet of paper and actually challenge yourself and write down the wins that you do have in life, because there's going to be some wins. There's going to be things that have gone right, that you've been successful at, goals you've set that you have hit. Write down all of those. And then from there, start setting new ones so that you can start achieving new goals. And what I mean by that is not like massive goals. Like if you've never run before, don't try to go run an ultra marathon, right? Like set those micro goals that are achievable so that you can start to build momentum and motivation and confidence. And I think that is just, I can't even stress that enough. People that I see in my own life that don't have that belief in themselves, it affects every part of their life, and then it keeps them from ever trying new things. Because they just, from the day one, their mindset is, I can't and I won't. You really need to rewrite that to, I can and I will, but I've just got to figure out the timeline and what it's going to take to do. Because somewhere along the lines, I realized that I don't have confidence, everywhere in my life, but I do have confidence in certain areas of my life that have been built line upon line upon line. If it was the absolute most important thing for me to go hike Mount Everest, I can promise you I would have gone and hiked Mount Everest. If the most important thing for me in my life was to be, to make as much money as possible, I would be making more money than I make right now. And that's just come from, I think, setting goals and achieving them, and that forward progression in life, which, by the way, I find very, very satisfying. But it's more than that, right? It fuels this confidence in you to be able to go and tackle things. Now, a caveat with this is when you go and start trying to do these things, you need to make sure that you're comparing to yourself. The only comparison in life worth doing is comparing yourself today compared to yourself yesterday or a year ago or 10 years ago. That's the only comparison that matters. Never compare yourself to the highlight reel that is social media of someone else's life, because you don't know the dumpster fire that's going on behind this front, right? And I've seen that also in my own life, how many times that happens. But just think about that, right? So as you start to say, okay, I need to get some wins in my life, I need to start building some momentum, set goals that are an improvement for you, not compared to the rest of the world, not compared to this professional athlete, not compared to some professional backpacker. Set goals that are appropriate for you. And then start building that momentum. And I promise you that by achieving goals, you build this momentum, you start to build this confidence, you start to build these successes and these wins, and they will rewrite how you think about yourself and how you think about what you can accomplish in your life. And you'll just step forward with so much more confidence. So to go back to this, to tackle or to face big, crazy goals, I think it's incredibly important that you focus on two things. You focus on the next step, and you focus on building wins and building that confidence. Now, to add that other kind of that middle step that I was talking about, like study the next step and prioritize and execute that. And then next is to build those wins, to change your belief pattern that you can instead of that you can't. I know for me, I think that in some ways I was naturally built to do this. I actually went and spoke at a local college, and I was asked to essentially, it was not my favorite. It's not my favorite thing. I had to actually tell people the negatives of being an entrepreneur, what's hard about being an entrepreneur. And so it's almost like I was talking people out of being an entrepreneur because I was saying how hard it is, personally, and how much stress you can carry, and the ups and the downs and everything. And, I've been doing this for 11 years now. And so it was interesting to sit and reflect on that. But one of the things I actually did was I essentially felt like at some point that I got to the end of a lot of the presentation and I said, now, after hearing all this, if you're still someone that is saying, yeah, that applies to everyone else in this room, but not me, like you feel like you're the exception, you probably really are an entrepreneur. Because I know if I was sitting in college and someone gave the same presentation, I would say, yeah, that's everyone else, but that's not me. I'm going to be the guy that makes it happen. And it's pretty cool to be sitting here 11 years down the road now and to know like the stats that we've probably all heard, right? What is it? 80 or 90% of businesses fail in the first 5 years. And then of those, another 80 or 90% fail in the next 5 years. So now we are past that mark. We are in the single digit success numbers. And we are, in a lot of ways, our company is stronger than ever and growing better. And we've learned so much. And it's fun to see. So if that applies to you, I think you're in the right spot to go and tackle some big, scary goals. Now, what goals? Because not everyone wants to build a business. Not everyone wants to go backpack 100 miles. You can all have your own individual goals. And then there's goals personally. There's goals career-wise. There's goals, hobby goals and things. One of the most clarifying questions that I've ever asked myself, and I try to ask myself this pretty consistently, is in 10 years or at the end of my life, what am I going to regret not doing, right? So as you're facing these decisions, as you're facing these things right in front of you, ask yourself that. All right, if I was to look forward 10 years, or if I was to, depending on what the question is, 50 years or whatever it is, 80 years, if I was to look backwards, what would myself then tell myself now to choose to do? I find that is one of the most clarifying ways to separate some of the emotion of today and apply that to what you really, truly want. What is the most important things in life? So use that as a question of what you should be focusing on and not. And I think, I don't know this exactly, but I remember reading and hearing a lot about people saying things like, on their deathbed, it's never it's never making more money. It's never career stuff, right? It's always making more memories. And usually that's tied very specifically to loved ones and the relationships that they have. So my challenge to you is to go and do something amazing outdoors. Our purpose as a company is to connect you to the vital outdoors. We strongly believe that it can heal you mentally, physically, emotionally, that it resets you, and that it just is a vital part of life. And something that we don't often incorporate in that too is by getting outside and into nature, it builds relationships. It either builds a relationship with yourself or it builds a relationship with the people that you're going on trail with. I know last year I did some big efforts solo. And I got to experience myself in different ways and learn more about myself and just have the most uninterrupted hours of time to process things, to disconnect from the stresses of life, to reconnect with what is the most important things with life. I also had trips within the last year where I spent, 7 days with my brother backpacking, and that builds relationships that are just different than the superficial world that we often live in. So my challenge to you is to take what I've learned, I guess, over 11 years of business now, 11 years of backpacking. I mean, I've been backpacking longer than that, but, and go apply it to yourself. Take some lessons from this. I hope that this is valuable. I think anytime you do a podcast like this and you kind of put yourself out there, you could just be talking and people are like, this is the dumbest stuff. But I think that it can be valuable for someone, which is why I'm going to put it out there. And hopefully people learn this, learn something from this and can apply it to their lives. So if you're watching on YouTube, drop us a comment. I'd love to watch comments and reply and just see if you guys have found similar things in your life, or if you have any clarifying questions that I can help about these concepts that I've been trying to talk through. Be on the lookout for some new products to come, but more importantly, check out the Founders Day sale. We only do site-wide sales twice a year. Other than that, we put like an individual product on sale or something like that. But this is one of the only Black Friday and today times that we do a site-wide sale. So go take advantage of that. Get more entries into the giveaway, and spend $100, get a free. I don't know. I think these shirts we typically sell for like $28 or something like that. So spend $100, get a $28 shirt. It's a pretty dang good deal. But thank you so much for supporting us. If you're still listening to this podcast, it's probably because you're a customer of ours or have been a customer of ours for a lot of years. I really, really appreciate it. I love what I get to do. We have a really cool culture here in the office. Everyone really enjoys what we get to do for work, and we continue to work our butts off to provide as much value for you guys and build the best product we possibly can, and do it direct to consumer to take out some of these astronomical prices that can come with good quality gear. I know a good quality gear can do for you guys when you get out there on trips firsthand. Being a Boy Scout, I almost talked about that today. Some of the crappy, funny stories from growing up, and how, getting into good gear and learning more about how to do things properly changed everything for me. But we love being able to provide that value for our customers. Thank you to all the members. Thank you for everything. This is 11 years in business as Outdoor Vitals, through thick and thin, through product redesign, catalog redesigns, logo redesigns, through, 8 years of a massive beard and back to more clean shave. All sorts of things. I really appreciate everyone who gives us their time, attention, and support. And that's what I'm going to leave you with. So make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Share this if you found value in this to anyone that you think this could be beneficial to. And we will catch you guys on a future episode.